Hi everyone, Bishop Sam here, and I want to provide an update from today's press conference, an announcement from Dr. Janice Fitzgerald, our Chief Medical Officer of Health, regarding a return in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador to a revised Alert Level 2, beginning effective this Saturday, March the 27th, 2021. And this, of course, will impact and affect our lockdown as a church and a worshiping community, because this now means that effective this weekend, this diocese all across the Avalon and the three archdeaconries and Labrador can now resume in-person public worship effective this weekend. I'm very thankful for this reality, because this now means, as we enter this most holy season of Holy Week and Easter, that we are now able to gather in person, with restrictions, of course, as we have been practicing for the last year, but we are now able to gather in person for worship during this very holy time of the Church's year. It should be noted that although the spread of this virus now seems under control with reduced cases and known cases of infection are now trending downwards, this does not mean that COVID or its variant are no longer in our province. In fact, it means that we now need to become even more diligent, as we have been over the last number of months, to turn the tide towards eradicating this horrible virus in our province. So as we resume our activities as a church, we must remain diligent and keep this fact in mind, that COVID is still with us. Careful attention and care must be applied in remaining fully adherent in all circumstances to the guidelines and directions set out in the Many Members One Body document. All of the updates to the diocese can be found on our diocesan website, anglicaneastnl.net, and you just click on the COVID-19 tab, and we'll give you the most recent updates that are there for all of us to read. Some particular things we must be aware of as we begin to resume public worship again. As I mentioned, that masks masks must be worn by all people at all times while they are on church property. And this applies to indoor gatherings as well as outdoor gatherings on church property. The only time that masks may be removed is to consume the Holy Eucharist. The exception, of course, to this is that children between the ages of 2 and 4 are encouraged to wear a mask, yet this is not mandatory. We know that the maximum number of people present for any public worship service in our church buildings cannot exceed 50 people in total, and that includes clergy and volunteers at any worship service. People attending public worship must be sat and distanced by household, and this, of course, includes regular Sunday worship or worship, as well as funerals, baptisms, and weddings. If parishes decide to hold multiple services on one day in the same building, you must be aware that there has to be a minimum of 2 hours between the end of one service and the beginning of the next. Of course, this allows for proper cleaning of the building, as well as ventilation, so that we are staying safe. Singing, which I know has been very important, and it is very important to the life of our church communities. Singing and the use of wind instruments are permitted as per the Many Members guidelines. Please note that if singing is used within a service of worship, that singing in total cannot exceed 60 minutes of duration. Of that 60 minutes, no more than 30 minutes can be spent singing. Let me reiterate that. The worship in total cannot exceed 60 minutes. Singing cannot exceed 30 minutes. There's so much of these regulations and so much changes that we've been going through, it's hard to keep up. So let me repeat that. A service of worship cannot exceed 60 minutes in total. Of that 60 minutes, no more than 30 minutes may be spent singing. Therefore, if clergy desire to incorporate pre-worship singing or singing of the Holy Eucharist, the sung liturgy into worship, you must be careful that along with any of hymns that you choose to pick, that this 30-minute limit of singing must not be exceeded. Of course, congregational singing, as it has been in the past, is limited to only the final hymn. And this hymn must occur just prior to departing the church services. And of course, as we know, masks must be worn while singing, including clergy, soloists, and the choirs. And ventilation, of course, as we know, must be employed. The sharing of microphones should continue to be avoided, as we have been practicing. If it is absolutely necessary for a microphone to be shared between people, the number of people using that microphone should be kept at a minimum. Parish offices can reopen effective next week on Monday, and they have to reopen as per directions on page 15 of the Many Members, One Body document. And of course, masks must be worn by all people at all times while they're on church property. And of course, rentals and indoor gatherings, all of these things are found in the Many Members document. And I invite you to remind yourselves of the conditions that are there. Fundraising events may resume virtually or as a curbside drop-off event. There is no in-person fundraising events on our properties at this time. When organizing and implementing fundraising activities, there can be no more than 50 people present inside the building at any one time, and masks must be worn at all times. And this, of course, doesn't mean that you can have a meal in your church hall with 50 people present. That's not what we're talking about. It's those who are organizing. It could be a takeaway, a cold plate supper, or some other type of event. You can't have the number of volunteers working in your building exceeding 50 people. When dropping off or picking up items, volunteers must not enter another person's home. As we know, there are many new things that have just happened today affecting the life of the church. I'm just so grateful for those in our diocese who have been so diligent in offering online worship. I do encourage online worship to continue throughout this process. And I also recognize that not every parish will be ready to open this weekend because of the shortness that we were informed of this information just a few hours ago. However, it is my deepest hope that all parishes that are able to do so can open for Easter. Easter is about resurrection and new life. And I know as your bishop that there's a sense that we have been kind of locked away, almost like Jesus in the tomb, held back from this wonderful experience that we have as a community of faith to worship God. It is my sincerest prayer that as we return to this revised Alert Level 2, that we are able to do so safely, but also to know that we are able to keep the requirements and expectations expected of us by the province, that we honor that and that we honor our own diocesan guidelines. So my friends, thank you so much for this update. Go to our diocesan website, click on the COVID-19 banner, be informed of what's expected of us. And we do know that as we continue to move forward in this pandemic, that there will be regular updates and there will be changes to our guidelines. But I'm just so thankful that we're able to right now be able to be open for public worship. Yes, it's 50 people, but before that we weren't able to gather. So we'll take what we can from today's conference. My dear friends, bless you as we enter this Holy Week, as we begin the journey of the Passion of Christ from the Palms to the Passion to the crucifixion and resurrection, may we always be aware of the presence of Christ, the risen Christ, in our lives. May you be blessed by God so that you may be a blessing for others. Amen.